And here we go again with yet another episode, an exciting episode, as I may add, of Communication Steroids Podcast.
You sound like a 50s cartoon. And now for another exciting episode of Mighty Mouse.
Invincible Man.
Yeah, exactly.
And over here to my left is Invincible Speaker.
Roger Pike.
And over here is Tim Gordon.
Absolutely. What are we talking about today, Tim?
I ran across an interesting article on core values, and it was about public speaking and about core values. And the point was made that when you are speaking to a group, if you understand what their core values are, the better you understand them, the better you will be able to relate to them, whether directly or indirectly, whether they sense it or not. If you understand that, it adds power, very kind of a subtle power to your presentation.
An absolutely overwhelmingly important and powerful tool. We are talking about this. We are venturing beyond the basics of communication, public skills, and persuasion. We're now getting into the nuts and bolts of true power persuasion, truly powerful persuasion. We're beginning to talk about the same stuff that they talk about in the boardrooms of the great advertising agencies, public relations firms. This is exactly what they want to know. They want to take their target. The first thing they want to do is identify their target, and in this case, it's your audience, whoever you're communicating with. And then they want to determine two things about that target. What do they believe? That is, what are their core values? And then what are their myths about themselves? What is their mythos? Once they've identified those two things, they can then craft their message. Some people call it spin. Some people call it crafting a message, so that they can take their idea and product and sell that message using those core values and that mythos.
So in our short 8 or 10 minute look at core values here on our podcast, we want to talk about what they are, where they come from, maybe some examples of some corporate core values that I've come across online. For instance, there's personal core values, there's professional, there's corporate values, there's group values such as a service club, like a Rotary Club or other organization. A religious group, a church, would have core values and they all may have some things that cross, but they're all very distinct and unique. I just wanted to share some core values that I found that you might speak to. For instance, a leading manufacturer of an eco-friendly cleaning product. I won't name the company. No sense to do that. But their core values are leadership, inspiration, and positive change. Make the world a better place. Sustainability, justice, and compassion. And an earth restored. Very good core values, and they articulated them quite well.
They sound political, so you want to be careful. But
from a leading print shop chain, they look at alignment and accountability, customer service excellence, teamwork, balance, community and environment, integrity, passion for results, respect, open communication. From an electric company, acting with absolute integrity, collaborating, supporting, and respecting one another, communicating openly, honestly, and frequently, developing a highly motivated, valued, and diverse workforce, simplifying and improving our processes continuously. These are just some examples of corporate values. So it really helps when you go speak to a group that you know and understand their core values. And that might be an interesting conversation. And I'll bet if you're a public speaker and you're going to speak to a group, if you had that conversation with the president of the group or whatever, the main contact, that would be a very interesting conversation, which most public speakers probably would not even broach or wouldn't even think of.
I certainly try and talk to leaders of the organizations that I'm speaking to, or the people that I'm communicating with, in order to get some idea of what it is that they're interested in. What are they? Do they really think is important? And sometimes you have to go beyond what their stated mission statement is, for example, or their stated goals are. Research the organization, the group. Find out the message behind the message, so that you can craft your communications to fit what they really, really want, what they really need.
And you were talking just before we came online here, some of the core values, when you know that, it really gets to the nuts and bolts of how to persuade. And you mentioned two key areas there: identify what they are and craft a message. If you would speak to that, that would be great.
Exactly. Once you've identified the core values, then you can begin to take what you already do. I don't mean to invent. That you invent something that relates to the core values, but rather take what you have, and some people call it spin. In politics, it's called spin. You don't create a brand new genre of product or a brand new genre of communication. You take what you already have and identify how it relates to those values. In other words, you subtly shade your message so that it relates to those core values, but without changing, you never want to lie. I do want to go to stress one thing about this kind of communication, about this kind of persuasion. It is possible to overdo it. You don't want to be seen as pandering. There's a difference between crafting your message to relate to someone's values and being obviously pandering to what you think that they want.
And I think in one area, it's very easy to slip into that, and that is politics. If you're speaking, if you're running for office, and especially at the national offices, that sort of thing, even statewide offices, senators and things like that, it's very easy to speak to one group one day and another group the next day, and you are shading your message. And if you get too far, you're right, you're pandering, and it becomes obvious of what you're doing.
And
so
it's
it has
deadly,
to be,
absolutely deadly.
Yeah, has to be very, very subtle. And I like that idea of looking at it and knowing it, and it'll come out in ways, even if you don't change a word of your speech, a couple of things might come up that maybe in a question and answer session.
Right.
It would come up into where you go, well, I understand here at this group, what's really important to you guys is serving the community. And so I think that's very important. So you would, if you knew that, then you can answer that, direct your answers at that.
What we're talking about here is not changing what you do or not changing what you believe, but rather packaging what you do and what you believe in such a way as it becomes appealing to specific audiences. That's relating to their core values or relating to their mythos. And maybe I should talk just a second about what I mean about mythos.
Sure.
People have an image of themselves. It may be completely divorced of reality, from reality, but they have this. But they have this image of themselves or this image of their group. For example, the whole Marlboro Man campaign, where they had the cowboy out on the range. There aren't any cowboys out on the range anymore. But what did that appeal to? It appealed to the myth of Americans as rugged individualists, and it was extremely effective. So once you've identified core values and a mythos, then you can begin to craft an absolutely killer message.
But this really, and you're right, because when it comes to delivering messages in advertising, I bet this would, this is a whole other discussion.
Exactly.
But advertising really speaks to core values of a target audience. Mm-hmm. The address of a cigarette manufacturer, as you mentioned, is going to be a whole lot different than the message, core values that Greenpeace is going to be delivering to their target audience. A lot of that may cross, but the message is going to be based on an extremely different core value.
Absolutely. Why do you think that every single light truck in America is sold complete with a cheerleader? I mean,
or light beer. Light beer, light truck, light cheerleader. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up our Communications Steroids podcast on core values. We'd love to hear from you, by the way. Go to our website at communicationsteroids.com, whether you're listening to this on our website or whether you're catching it on YouTube, because we do also release our podcasts on YouTube. And the email address is either Tim at communicationsteroids.com or Roger at communicationsteroids.com. Got a comment? Let's hear from it.
Drop a line. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening here to our podcast from communicationsteroids.com.